So it really hasn't become all that surprising after what's been going on with Indy 5 and Kathleen Kennedy's treatment of this movie by James Mangold and Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who also, by the way, contributed to the story and the script of this film. She didn't necessarily write anything on paper, but we've talked about this. She did actually have James Mangold make certain decisions for this movie, such as making Indiana Jones a broken man. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. And let's get right into what's going on with Kathleen Kennedy and Indy 5. Now, today is the day, by the way. It's releasing today around 3 p.m. at least Eastern Standard Time over in all theaters around there. And you're going to begin to get more and more audience reviews today, most likely on Rotten Tomatoes for starters, and here as well. You know, we're going to have a handful of people also coming forward to us. Now, what's interesting about the Dial of Destiny's situation right now is that not only are people like Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy getting very defensive over the box office projections, she also went on to insult Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, and more so Steven Spielberg on the end of things, regarding Indiana Jones 5 and the original 3 movies that are cemented, of course, as Phoebe Waller-Bridge would like to say, into pop culture. Now, what's interesting about all of this, alright, is exactly what Kathleen Kennedy had to deliver. Now, with Kathleen Kennedy on a train of downplaying the fans and heavily upselling Indy 5 to the general public, she recently made a big diss and insult to Steven Spielberg, who took part in the original 3 films with George Lucas. Now, Kennedy went on to deliver the following. Well, just like with Star Wars, when we examined the Indy franchise, we knew going in that we had to embrace a new generation. It was time to move on from Spielberg's and Lucas's treatments of Indy. We felt the right path to go was by embracing an age where Indy is a worn down man and needs help from his loving goddaughter to bring him back up to his old status. But we didn't want to bring Indy back to his previous status created by Steven and George. We wanted to use Indy as this great plot device in the film for Helena Shaw to truly serve as a teacher of sorts, or this type of lesson provider to Dr. Jones, and we felt this was a great and only way to create a bond. And to finally let go of the past and the popular character fans grew up with from the start. Guys, let me stop here for a second. She said this very similar in a sense to George Lucas's Star Wars, of moving on from George Lucas, and then you have to cut off that burden to really embrace the new. Look, I mean, when we look back at The Last Jedi, there's no coincidence here that Adam Driver's Kylo Ren delivers that line of dialogue in Snoke's throne room where he's like, you know, let the past die, kill it if you have to. Obviously, that was a line created between both Rian Johnson and Kathleen Kennedy to embrace this new age of Star Wars, of stripping down all the core values of what makes Star Wars, well, Star Wars. You know, the Jedi, the Sith, good versus evil, etc., etc. So what's interesting about this, too, is how she goes as far to say that she wants to strip down the old perception of Indiana Jones as this adventurous guy that's, you know, really witty and makes a lot of cracking jokes here and there, and she wants to kind of just have him become this worn down man that's being rebuilt by his goddaughter. And look, this is growing very old. It's almost becoming to be expected in every single movie, be it Indy, Star Wars, or any other kind of franchise that brings back a character from ages ago. You can almost expect this to be a copy and paste scenario, at least if it's by Disney and or Lucasfilm. Now, rushing to the next thing here, she goes on to elaborate further, alright? Both Spielberg's vision and Lucas's vision had to go with this movie. We couldn't have done this film with Mangold if we chased that again, and we knew going in that we needed a new generation of characters to lead the way, much like Rey, Finn, and Poe in our Star Wars films. We are doing this with Helena and Teddy in this film, and Indy is really along for the ride in this one. It's a spectacular new way of showcasing Indiana Jones for the age that he's in. So she is admitting it right here that he's along for the ride, and that the only way to make this film make sense was to make him more or less of what sounds like a supporting character to me, because she's making it sound like Helena Shaw is like the main character here, leading the way. Every decision is her decision in this film, apparently, from the critics that have been talking about this movie at Cannes Film Festival, ranging to the Hollywood critics as well. And by the way, more critics are coming forward today on Rotten Tomatoes, really just not giving this movie a pass, and really not giving it a good review. We'll have to see what happens later on today, leading into tomorrow when the movie actually really comes out to theaters, so keep your eyes open for that, guys. We'll be tracking it hour by hour. But she goes on to elaborate further. This is where it gets even worse. Harrison didn't really agree with this approach, I will be honest, and it took time for him to adopt and accept this treatment of the overall style of Indiana Jones that we were going for. Spielberg didn't really like some of my and James' ideas for this adaptation, but we had to move on from Steven's approach. We just couldn't hold on to that burden between him and Lucas anymore, and it was time to move on from all of that, and we are very confident that it works. So, again, Kathleen Kennedy acting all very much overconfident, acting very much like she knows everything and everything about Indiana Jones and or Star Wars. And we know that everything, of course, related to Star Wars as a whole and Indiana Jones is only falling apart. It's sad but true, guys. I mean, it was a really tough pill to swallow when one of my favorite franchises, such as Indiana Jones, also got hit by Kathleen Kennedy. And that's where I really began to realize that Lucasfilm really is in a very bad phase right now, or is in very bad shape. Given that Indy 5 is a hot mess, and it is, it's one of those scenarios where, yeah, it's a bait and switch. It opens up on a very good note, and not heavy spoilers, by the way, guys, but this movie does open up with the young Indiana Jones, the de-aging technology, the deepfake tech, whatever have you. And then it captures you, and then it just kind of goes into a downward spiral, unfortunately. But true, that's what happens with Indiana Jones 5, The Dial of Destiny. Now look, it just goes to show you that they have wrecked Star Wars, Willow, and now Indiana Jones. This is why so many Hollywood studios want nothing to do with her, why they have restricted her, and more. So look, at the end of the day also, we need to remember that Harrison Ford himself really just doesn't seem to be too enthusiastic about this movie. And look, to be fair, he's never really enthusiastic. I get that. But there's some kind of energy that he's giving off with this one, where he just seems like he just did this for a paycheck. Obviously, is that really so hard to tell? I mean, at this day and age, or at this age, I should say, I would be more worried about my legacy rather than a paycheck. I mean, this man has so much money in the bank. There's no doubt about that. His net worth is off the charts. Why would you want to worry about a paycheck? If I were him, I would have just said no. Anyways, guys, I would love to hear your take on this below in the comments, and if you all did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.